Here I'm going to show you how to do some cool things like add focus on a single feature by blurring the area around it, and to change the lighting of a picture to make, again, more emphasis, but also to kind of create a cool mood. These are using the blur gallery and the lighting gallery features that are new to CS6, so these will not work in anything older than CS6. And anything newer than CS6 might have a couple extra features or more refined features than what I'm going to show you here. So anytime that we are editing or changing a photo with a filter, it's just a good idea to duplicate that layer. So I'm going to click and drag mine to the new layer icon to make a duplicate. This one I'm going to call blur, which is what I plan on doing to this one. Let's begin by making sure we are in the correct color mode, because these features will only work in RGB color mode. I'm looking at my image, and up in the top left tab it does say RGB, but if you can't see that, go to your image menu and look at mode, and it should say RGB color. So then let's go to the filter, go to blur, and choose one of these top three options. I'm going to start with iris blur. Iris blur I'm starting with because it has kind of all of the features that the rest of the things that we'll look at will feature as far as the GUI goes. So the GUI is this user interface piece that you can click here in the center where the pin is and drag around, and you'll notice that where the center is in focus and everything around it is blurry. So what I want you to do is pin that on the light bulb, which is where we want our focus to be. Then you can change the shape of that iris blur by clicking and grabbing the outside circle, and that will change both the rotation and the outside shape of the blur. The larger circles within that are where the blur starts. So I'm going to bring these right down to my lamp and let the blur get greater from there, and then do a couple of final tweaks. Now the strength of the blur can be changed both here by clicking on the outside ring and dragging to either the left or the right, or over on the right where it says iris blur, that same slider will do exactly the same thing. Once you've got the blur about where you want it, take a look and maybe just kind of quickly go through what light bokeh does. You can see that it's increasing the strength of the light in the area that is blurry. The color, I honestly have played with that a little and haven't seen that it makes too much of an effect. And then the light range, kind of again the same thing. I think that's limiting where these two affect. Honestly, I haven't had much need in what I do to use these, but I have not used this feature extensively. This is more for just, I use it when I am creating focus mostly on portraits to get that blurred depth of field that I actually don't have a nice enough lens to achieve on my camera. Once you've got everything set up the way you want, you could click OK to finalize this. But before we go on, I'm just going to show you how to use any of these other blur features. So here in the right under blur tools, you've got three different blurs. The one we've just used is iris blur, and I'm going to uncheck that for a minute and we should be able to go back to it. Tilt shift is a effect that is used to often make it feel like something is miniature compared to everything else around it. I've seen it used to pretty good effect on both photography and even in film. If it's filmed with a tilt shift, everything that is in focus feels like it's miniaturized to everything else. So this isn't the best picture to feature this, but you can see that the GUI controls are pretty much the same, they're just shaped a little different. Alright, let's go on to field blur. This one's pretty darn basic. It is just everything blurry. So this is pretty much the same as a Gaussian blur. It just gives you a little more fine control over these effects down here. So I'm going to come back here, click the iris blur on, and uncheck these other two. And you know what? It looks like I need to click on the iris blur itself to see my controls again. But I like the way this looks, so I'm going to click OK, and that will finalize that effect on the layer that I'm on. Now, I know you haven't moved on to the next video, but in the next video I show how to use smart objects, so to convert a layer to a smart object to apply filters to that will leave the layer as its original state. Unfortunately, Blur and Blur will not let you do that, so that's why I'm not using a smart object on this, if you happen to know about smart objects already. Let's duplicate that layer and call this one lighting. And this is a fun bit. We're going to make it appear like this is more of a nighttime scene and that this lamp post is really casting some brighter light around it. So once you've made your duplicate, go back up to the filter layer and choose Render Lighting Effects. And this will bring up a lighting gallery that is new to CS6. And here I can see that it automatically on mine came up with 3 spotlights because I think that's what I was using last. Yours probably came up with something else. So I'm going to change mine by coming up here to the presets and choosing a circle of light. Oh, nope, that's not what I thought it was going to be. Let me try default. Now this is the same type of GUI that you can pin, make stronger, rotate, and change the size of. Now it's not quite what I want because it's like a spotlight, so if this were a typical street lamp shining downwards, this would work. But what I'm really looking for is just a single light in the middle. So I've chosen Soft Omni as mine. Now I can grab this outer ring and scale it down so that I have literally only light around that lamp, and I can change the effect of it over here in the properties. So I can brighten or darken. I can even give it more of a color tint. So here where this is a yellow lamp, if I click over on the lamp itself, it eyedroppers the color. I don't want everything to go way yellow. I'm just going to go a little bit yellow. So I'm changing my color to kind of a pale yellow and clicking OK. And then there's a lot of other fun features you can try. Now you can actually add more lights to a single effect and they will appear as layers down here. Now I haven't done this too often, so let's see what happens if I just click. There we go. Alright, so you have 3 different types of light up here. And there is a spotlight, a point light, and an infinite light. And you can see here on the right under the lights panel that I have these. They're almost like layers, and by clicking on one I can edit its attributes. Now I can also change the type of light it is. If I'm on this, at the very top of the properties there is a switch drop down where you can switch it to a different type of light. So if I do want this to have kind of a stronger downward light effect, I could drop a spotlight on it, which will let me illuminate a little bit more of the lamppost itself. And you could play really just forever with these. It's quite a bit of fun. There are presets over here that you can choose that have all sorts of fun settings that you can mess around with. It's kind of fun to just click through them and see how those lights are made up. Once you've chosen all of your lighting effects, then you've got it set up the way you want, just click OK, and that will finalize on that layer. So here we go. Here's our beginning. We added a blur, and then we added some lighting, and now we have almost a completely different photo and a different feel with this very neat effect. Now, just like all the other effects that we've looked at, if it's on its own layer, you have the ability to scale it back if it's too strong by just lowering the opacity of the overall layer, or if you want to affect only a specific part of it, click on the layer and then click the Add Layer Mask button, and then you can paint with black paint into that layer mask to soften up specific areas. So I've got black paint, a big fuzzy brush, and I've lowered the opacity quite a bit to maybe like 34. And then I could paint or mask away a little bit of that lighting layer to reveal more of what is beneath it. So that is those couple of really cool filter galleries.